Yipee-Ki-Yay, Mr. Falcon.
You know what weird shit we've been watching? Do you remember that old sitcom Coach?
Yeah, I remember Coach Craig
T. Nelson. Yeah.
And the guy that does the voice of Patrick Starfish.
Dauber. Hey, it's Dauber.
You know that's Patrick Starfish, right?
Yeah, from SpongeBob. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was in the Stand miniseries too. M-O-O-N. That spells moon. M-O-O-N. That spells Coach. I don't know, man. It's very comforting for some reason. It's an extremely.
I watched Coach.
It's a super low stakes show, and it's kind of funny. And I think Luther has some darkness in him.
Yeah.
He ain't right, that man.
Wait, that was Luther was
the Dick Van Dyke's brother.
Oh. Okay. It's been a while. I remember Dauber, and I remember Coach.
Luther's the short, angry, well, not angry, but loud one.
Yeah. Okay. Now I remember.
They're all kind of dumb, but I don't know. I remember it differently than the show is. It's a good thing. I hated it when I was a kid, and now I'm old, and I guess I like quaint things.
Now you get the jokes.
I guess. I don't know. The jokes aren't that racy. They're pretty tame. It's just, I don't know. I remember it just being extremely boring and everyone dressed like a dork when I was a kid.
They all had like tracksuits on, right?
Tracksuits, and then like they wore dad clothes, like the light colored jeans with a real skinny woven belt. Remember that thing?
Yeah.
And then the Henley shirts with like 10 buttons, and everything's in the school colors, which are like purple and yellow.
They're like rugby shirts.
Yeah, and everyone's wearing like New Balance, like white New Balance sneakers and shit. They look like, granddads do now, because that's who they are. Because Craig T. Nelson's old as shit.
Yeah, those people became granddads.
You're a granddad.
Oh God, I hope not. It's too soon for that. Jeez.
Did I tell you Arturo's having a kid?
No.
Yeah, I gotta call him.
Oh my.
It was supposed to happen this month, I think, or next month. It's imminent.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, good for him. That's congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah. I guess. And
I tell you what, the kids have a way of snapping your whole life into focus. You have to, whatever you're screwing up, you have to stop.
Oh, he's already snapped into some kind of focus. He went to Texas to go to school to learn how to be a minister, like a Jesus minister.
What?
Yeah.
Are we talking about the same guy?
Yeah. I think he must have had a breakdown or something. I don't know. I haven't talked to him in a long time.
An awakening.
Yeah. He just got hit by the lightning bolt.
Do you see the light?
Like Saul on his way to Tarsus. He was struck down by the Lord our God.
Lord, my God. My God.
Hank Azaria appeared to him in the road to San Antonio. Well, you might have not liked that movie, but we have a thing from it, so I think it was worth it.
Oh yeah, I had quite a chuckle at that part.
My God, I've been saying that around the house. Lenny's been getting pissed at me.
My God,
Hunter, my God, what have you done? You know what my disgusting dog just did?
What?
My wife took him out so he wouldn't bother me while we're doing this. And he came on the porch, and my wife noticed it looked like he had something in his mouth, right? She goes, drop it. Drop what you have. He drops it. It's a turd.
Oh, man.
He carried a turd onto the porch with his face that he eats with.
I'm sorry.
Still not as gross as a kid, so you win.
That's very weird. I experienced a dog turd related incident today.
Ooh, do tell.
Yeah.
At work?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. You work at a grocery store. That's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, like that we had reports of a mess, a cleanup on aisle 8. And I was like, what is it? And then I start getting the look like, you don't want to know. Well, evidently, one of those people that insists on bringing an animal into a grocery store had put a small dog inside of a cart, and that dog then relieved himself in the cart, but did so in a way that, like, most of it got stuck in the cart, but the rest of it shot out the bottom and left like a 20-foot trail.
Wow, so the dog like waffle stomped his shit through the cart, huh?
Yeah,
that's pretty.
And it was gross. It was viscous enough that it like got through the bottom of the cart.
Viscous.
Caused quite a mess. The lady just picked up the dog, ditched the cart, and like beat feet and got out of there.
She just ran?
Yeah, she ran.
She shit and ran? Oh. Listen, lady, if you're listening to this and your little dog,
you're on camera.
you're a piece of shit, is what you are. You could at least stuck around and like apologized and given Tom a 20 or something for cleaning up your dog's weird shit.
I didn't have.
Leave your fucking dog at home.
Clean it.
You have minions? That's good.
Poor soul took care of that, and they deserve to be commended for their hard work because nobody should have to deal with that.
But listen, Sharon, you with the little dog, fuck you.
You know who you are.
Well, we went out not too long ago into the world and saw a movie.
Yeah, we did.
We saw a movie.
We sure did.
We sure did. This isn't news to anyone at this point, but the new Wolfman movie isn't that good.
Oh, man. It pains me to say it, too, because I had high hopes for it.
We have been talking about this since back when it was supposed to come out, like around Halloween last year, and then got delayed and delayed. Why did we think this was going to be good? It was because it was the guy who made Invisible Man, right? And we kind of like that.
Yeah. The gist of it was we saw Invisible Man. We loved it. We really enjoyed the update, you know, that they kind of took it in a fresh direction. And it was well acted. It was a neat twist on an old classic. And there was a lot of pedigree there. This Wolfman remake had a lot of good things going for it.
Yeah. I didn't really know anyone in the cast, like by name, but I've seen the guy Abbott in things, and once I saw his face, and I watched Ozarks way back when. But good Christ, man. It was a slog for me. Like, I was bored through a lot of it. Were you?
I mean, I wasn't as bored through a lot of it. I think I made a genuine attempt to like this movie, and I almost got there. But then by the end of it, I ran out of steam. I couldn't try anymore.
Well, I think that's the problem with it. It sets up so many things that just never get delivered on. And I hate to say it because it's such a cliche criticism of a movie, but it really didn't know what the fuck it wanted to be. Like, it's a movie called Wolfman, but it's not really about a werewolf. It's kind of like a new monster with new rules that they make up that's more like a Wendigo shapeshifter type of thing. Skinwalker, maybe, but still is like infectious. So it's kind of like a zombie movie in a way, but it's also a cabin in the woods movie in that it's literally set in a house
cabin.
I mean, yeah,
in the woods.
It's in the middle. It's a house. Like, it's not a little cabin, but it still has no electricity except a generator. Like, it's out in the middle of the fucking woods, and the whole story takes place over one night. I didn't know that. Like, I knew the setting, and I thought it was going to be a slower burn than it was.
Right.
Especially considering how Invisible Man went, you know, and that was such a slow build up until that scene where she, like, it's undeniable that he's in the fucking room with her, and she, like, you know, and she knows, everybody knows, and that movie played like these long drawn out silences because you're always wondering, you can't fucking see the guy. Is he standing in the room? Is he in the frame? Like, you're trying to look for something, waiting for something to move. Like, it really worked. And then
they
apparently,
played up
go ahead.
an elemental fear that people have, and it's just. Is something really there? Like, is there something in the room with me?
You know what occurred to me the last time I watched that That must be how
What?
blind people feel all the time. I'm not even joking though. Like I have a bad brain, so I often think what it's like day to day mundane shit with disabilities.
Jesus.
Because I'm really super morbid, and I was thinking about that, and I'm like, fuck, man. That's what it must be like to be blind all the time. There's an old bit in a Seinfeld episode where he goes, "What do you think the worst thing about being blind would be?" I think it would be never knowing if there's bugs in my food. Ah. But I fucking thought about that, and I'm like, fuck, you never would know what the fuck you're eating,
Yeah,
would you?
you wouldn't.
You have to just trust, man. Like, you really would have to just... I think I might only ever eat cereal. Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, you would... she basically was a blind person.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, yeah, I get it. I don't know. I don't get why you think that way, but
This is why I need you around. You got to keep me positive. But
in that movie, yeah, they make you afraid of the idea that something might be there. And the other like classic trope, it's almost like a monster under the bed movie, because she's telling everyone,
Yeah.
I swear there's something there, and like no one believes her.
Yeah,
it's like
so
when
it's-
your parents
yeah.
don't believe that there's a monster under the
it
bed.
dips into paranoia and fears of losing your mind. You know, it had a lot of stuff going for it. And it unfortunately, I don't know if I think he has his name's Lee Winnell or Wannell, I don't know, Winnell, whatever. I think he's got a limited bag of tricks. And he kind of tried to play everything again in this movie, especially with the minimal score and the really drawn out silences. But in this movie, it just turned into, very typical setups for jump scares, I thought.
Yeah, and you know what? Too, the scares were just that. They were like kind of cheap and jumpy. When we talked about the Invisible Man and how we thought it was really cool that they shifted the focus off the monster and onto whoever was like affected by
Right.
it, and played on like what they were experiencing, and it made it really tense. And I was like, man, if they did that in a Wolfman movie and like dad's about to be a werewolf, you could have stayed with the mom and daughter and just had them be scared shitless the whole time. But what we got was like, I mean, I put myself in that position. Like if I were turning into a werewolf or whatever he turned into, and my wife and daughter were there, like they would not be so calm. Like,
Yeah, that was
my wife
weird.
would have beat
Well,
me to death.
First
with
off,
a
the
frying pan or
performances
something.
were so bland across the board. Abbott was okay. The main guy, werewolf boy, whose name is Blake, I think, in the
Wolf
movie.
boy.
Wolfman. But his wife, Charlotte, is the Julia Garner woman from Ozarks, in which she was good in that. Like, she was really good in that.
She can
She can act. She was
She just
a
did
wooden board in this movie. What is it the fuck about Wolfman movies that turn good actors into wooden boards? The same thing happened with Benicio del Toro in the last time they tried to do this.
Well, that was.
I mean, that has
I
it
actually
whole-
watched that recently, and I said like, who cast him in this? And then you said like that this was a passion project of his.
He'd
Like,
been talking
got that
about it for
movie made.
years. He'd been trying to make that when he was young, like when he was doing Fear and Loathing and shit. And it was like in development hell. Because I think part of it was that Universal was trying to do that, its monster universe at the time. And that's what Van Helsing was supposed to be the start of. The first time they did this. They've done this like 4
Right.
times.
Oh yeah,
And this has become like a de facto Universal Monsters reboot that they did. I don't know if they planned the Invisible Man to be part of it or not, but man, they thought they were onto something. But this, God, and we're not the only ones. Like nobody liked this movie. Like I thought it was going to be really tight and tense, and considering the casting, I thought it was going to be more of like a Shining type of deal. The book, not the movie, where you have like a really gentle father with some demons, and he just gradually gets meaner and more wolfy,
Wolfie.
And I thought that was what it was going to be. It was going to play into fears of someone you love and who normally is supposed to take care of you turning into the biggest threat, like. And I mean, they tried to do it, but again, it took place over one night. And like you said, the reactions from, I mean, the daughter less to an extent. She did a really good job for a child actress, I think, but it was just so boring. Like, they didn't seem scared. I sure wasn't really scared. The one scene that I thought had some merit was the greenhouse scene. Was a little
they tried
creepy.
to build some tension.
That was kind of neat. I wasn't expecting that, but like, that's it. I mean, I remember a few scenes. The story was horrendous. And also, first, I need to point this out. There is no reality in this day and age where a family of 3 is living in any major city in this country and not only surviving on one newspaper reporter's salary. He's an out-of-work writer, and she is a reporter for an unnamed newspaper. We know it's a newspaper because she talks about printing in a press or some shit. She said something that was a giveaway that it was print. Not only that, but they're able to just, like, when he inherits this shit house in the middle of nowhere, they're able to just drop everything. She quits her job, and somehow they have enough cash to
Well, I don't
live.
think she quit her job. I
But
think
they had
the
a whole moving truck of shit. Like, they weren't
I
just
think the setup was that they were going to clean out the house.
the moving truck was empty.
To sell it.
So the truck, when the U-Haul was empty, I didn't understand that because
what
there's
I
no
thought.
fucking dialogue before they get there. There's hardly anything.
Well, I think he mentions it. He's like, I got to go clean out my dad's house. Like, he left it to me, and I think he was going to go.
But she
like,
said
clean
something
it out and sell
about
it.
taking some time off work.
Yeah, and I think she took some time. I think they meant to like turn
Like a
it into
week?
a trip. Yeah.
Whatever.
I'm sorry. It sounded like you really wanted to hate that point.
I'd still hate that point.
taking that from you.
They could not have afforded that apartment that they were living in on a reporter's salary. I know, we tried it years ago. Reporters barely made shit.
You had a reporter's salary.
Yeah,
at
we
one
lived
point.
we lived on 2 of them at one point, and we were eating powdered eggs and shit.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah, Tom and I lived in the same apartment complex way back when. Yeah, it wasn't a good place. The month we moved out, a woman was stabbed to death in the apartment across the street. So there's that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
No.
Yeah, it was a married couple who had come over from India, I think 2 years earlier, and the husband, they think, stabbed the wife. They found her dead, and I don't think they ever caught him.
Maybe he turned into a wolf man.
We were at my parents' house watching TV, and it came on, and they interviewed our downstairs neighbor in the street.
Oh, she hated us.
No, the guy who had lived there for we had a guy underneath of us. He turned his front porch, his balcony, into like a enclosed room.
Oh, that one.
He'd been living there for like 20 years. He was he was a lifer. And that, I think, I remember him, he was a really nice guy, man. He used to watch our place, and he would shovel the walk sometimes if he got up early. He was a really cool dude. Really into Jesus. But like really nice about it, if that makes any sense. You know, he didn't proselytize a lot, but he said Jesus a lot, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, she got stabbed to death, yeah. You guys almost set your apartment on fire that time.
That wasn't my fault. I saved it.
Kevin, if you're listening, this argument is still going.
Well, he maintains that it wasn't his fault either. And I don't know what to believe. All I know is that I sprang into action and put out a large fire on my porch in the middle of the night, and I probably saved the whole block.
If yous bad kids hadn't been smoking them cigarettes, it never would have happened in the first place.
This is true. Just say no, kids.
I do want to say something about Wolfman. The intro, I thought, was pretty strong with the father.
Oh, and the hunting part? Yeah, that was cool.
That whole thing gave me hope. I was like, oh, all right, I'm in, because it did great shit. It didn't show you what they were running from. It was creepy, and the fact that it wasn't at night, it was like twilight, somehow made it even creepier. And the story it told through the sounds, and especially, I guess, being in the theater, and the deer blind too. That bit,
The deer blind was cool.
like you noticed that you saw the breath behind them, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And then you hear the elk bugle, and then it runs off and goes eats the elk. That was tense. That was tense. It reminded me of the X-Files for some reason. Maybe the very damp woods, rich, deciduous forest. Deciduous forest. That was, I had hope. And then they did the, 30 years later, and it's like, oh, God damn it. I called it too. I whispered it to you. As soon as they did that, did I not?
Yeah.
Did I not? I don't want to. Are we doing spoilers? Fuck it. We're doing spoilers, I guess. Shocker. The dad is the werewolf. Whoa. And he bites the son. Holy shit. And guess what? Another werewolf fight. They couldn't avoid it. Another werewolf movie that could not fucking manage to avoid having a werewolf fight. And this one wasn't that good. It was pretty lame.
No.
Dad werewolf was beat.
You know what ultimately drove me nuts about this movie?
No, what? Tell me.
It's called The Wolfman. So automatically, I have some
this one was just called Wolfman. There was no article. Okay,
okay, irrelevant. Jesus.
It's different.
It's called Wolfman. So it automatically sets some expectations. And it says one by one, each one of them was like dashed, like thrown out the window. Like number one, like right in the beginning, I'm like, oh, it's not even nighttime. So okay, so the rules are different.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Like,
yeah.
It's not a werewolf that comes out during the full moon, but whatever. I'm still into it.
No,
then
go ahead. I'm sorry.
They go back to the house, and the thing attacks them, and he gets bit, and he just slowly and immediately starts to change into a werewolf.
Oh, can I ask you something?
Well, that rule's different.
Did he get bit in the truck?
I think he got
or did he get
in the truck?
But the doggy door thing, that's when he got bit?
No.
When the thing grabbed him through the doggy door?
No, I don't think so.
No?
I think the initial wound he got in the truck
arm
was
yeah. Okay.
Because that thing was like was just gross immediately.
By the way, that whole setup, the crash and then the hunting by a werewolf, they did that in that Christina Ricci movie, Cursed.
Oh, word?
That was the same exact thing. That's how Shannon Elizabeth died. She was in the car.
I don't think I saw
the
that
car
one.
flipped. Jesse Eisenberg goes in and tries to save her. Werewolf drags her out the other side. Okay, we got to take a second to talk about this movie, Cursed, because it bears it's important. Go ahead, finish what you were saying, but don't let me forget Cursed.
Yeah. So like number one, werewolf doesn't come out at night. Number two, or Wolfman doesn't change like with the full moon. He just immediately starts to transform.
Transformation from human into something, and it's not. They don't turn back.
That's the third. Yeah, that's the third thing that went out the window. What he turns into. If I had seen it, like I'm not looking at whatever he is and thinking like, oh yeah, that's a Wolfman. It was like. It was the baldest Wolfman I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was a weird choice.
Like weird teeth. He got like a little hairier around the gills, but
yeah, the jowls.
Other than that, he doesn't look like a Wolfman. He just looks. He looks like a.
The father did a little bit more. The father looked a bit
even
more.
Then, I read that an Abraham Lincoln beard and some teeth.
I read that some people were saying that the main character hadn't fully transformed by the time the movie ends.
Well, and neither had the dad.
And he would have kept getting wolfier. And yeah, that's what I said. He wasn't that much different looking from the dad. And the dad apparently had been a whatever the fuck they were for years at this point. No, man. Like, and I get it. Like when they made The Invisible Man, you think, all right, there's some tenets to an Invisible Man story. Well, and what you're talking about is the H.G. Wells story, right? So that's a very specific setup. It's like Frankenstein. Like, you can do things with it, but you
Right.
kind of need a doctor and you kind of need a monster.
Right.
Or the whole thing it's not Frankenstein anymore. Even young Frankenstein had a doctor and a monster. Well, Invisible Man didn't do that. It kept the one thing, the insane scientist who creates a way to make himself invisible. They use a suit instead of a serum. Fine. It worked. It was great.
And he's crazy.
All the rest of it, like you said, it was a complete shift in perspective, because usually you're with the insane professor as he keeps getting crazier the longer he's invisible. That's the H.G. Wells story. So when the Wolfman, it started as a movie. You know, it's the Universal Lon Chaney Jr. movie. That's the first time the story was written for the screen. And yeah, sure, they made up a bunch of the werewolf shit that is in that movie for the movie. Like, there's a couple books that have things like Silver, and the full moon thing was almost completely made up for the movie.
Yeah, but they set a pretty specific set of rules
Right.
that was followed
And
by everyone else.
And when they did the first remake, like, think about what they did. It's the story of Larry Talbot. It's a very specific werewolf story, you know? And nothing else is really called the Wolfman, like, because that's Universal shit. It owns it. Like, it's to me, calling something the Wolfman and then making about a completely different monster with a completely different setup, like, entirely. I don't know. Why the fuck would you even call it Wolfman? All you're doing is setting people up for disappointment.
Would you have liked that movie better if it was called Wendigo?
Probably, yeah. I wouldn't have been expecting
me too.
anything if
I
it
would have
was.
forgiven a lot more.
And that's a cool monster, by the way, and a very American monster. And they hinted at the Native American origins, but there are real Native American legends, and none of them are like this. You know, if you're really going to do that, pick one and go with it. Like, did you ever? Have
they
you ever
called it the Wolfman and then half baked a Native American folklore tale, and it was just it did neither one of them well.
No, it didn't. The face of the wolf. I'm like, you made that shit up. I don't even care if they didn't.
That was the only mention of wolf.
Yeah, and then what was that?
At
The
all.
text in the beginning, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it was a text crawl.
They tried to be mysterious and not explain a lot of things, and I mean, it almost worked. If they'd really made it more about the characters and less about that weird camera shifting thing that they did to show how his perception of the world was different from everyone around them.
I kind of liked that bit.
I liked it, but it drifted a little too close to Wolf Vision for me. You know, the auditory stuff I really liked when they started doing that. But then when, like, they're showing you I don't know, man. It's just like wolfing. It was like wolfing. Wolfing.
Fucking Albert Finney and his hot dogs.
And his hot dogs. And again, I'm going to reiterate this. I don't know if they explained it or not. Maybe they did. We only saw it once in the theater. But I refuse to believe that crazy paranoid father of his in that house out in the middle of nowhere didn't have a bunch of guns stashed someplace. And that's the other thing.
Yeah.
These
he was
things
totally a prepper.
These things don't need to be killed in any special way. He
just took a rifle round to the chest, and that was it.
Yeah, and when he killed the father, he just bit his throat out. You know? That was lame. That was super lame. Like, what is it? Did you ever watch Supernatural, the show?
I've seen it, yeah.
The first season, early on, there is a Wendigo episode, and it's actually like the scariest episode of the show. It was
really
that show was kind of dark in the beginning and actually did try to be scary, like X-Files style, and then it got kind of goofy later. But Christ, it was on for 15 seasons. But yeah, it's a really good one, and I always was like, man, they should really do something with a Wendigo and like a werewolf setup, you know. But yeah, because that's the deal with the Wendigo. It's a man like there's several legends about it, but the basic legend that always gets retold is that it's usually someone who is alone in the wilderness for one reason or another, usually in the winter, and they start to starve, and then they resort to picking people off trails and eating them and going cannibal. And the act of eating human flesh gradually turns them into this thing, this Wendigo. And it has an insatiable hunger, from what I remember. That's the deal. It's never not hungry. Yeah. And where was I going with that? It's a neat monster. Like it's
yeah, that sounds like a neat story.
And it's a gradual change. That was my point. It's like you're not changing back, right?
Yeah, they made it in. This was like a virus.
Isn't that the cool part about the werewolf, though? Like, there's so many other things that just, like that are like cabin fever. You know, that was about a flesh-eating virus. You know, there's all the zombie movies. Like, it's irreversible change and human monster, right? But isn't the kick of the werewolf story that they change back and that it could be anyone? And
yeah, and then you always have that trope where like they wake up and they're like, oh, what have I done? Why am I covered in blood? Where are my shoes?
Yeah, and like we talked about it too, like it always taps into themes that are related to addiction and especially alcoholism. The whole waking up, not remembering what bad shit you did the night
after
before.
A bender.
Yeah, and there's evidence of it all over you. Like, that's what it's tapping into a lot of times. And I get it. Like, you're trying to do something different with the werewolf story, but at some point it's not a werewolf story anymore.
Yeah, it stops being a werewolf story.
And look, man, it's not like there's a plethora of cinematic gems in the werewolf genre. There's like 2 good movies. You could argue 3 maybe, right? Like there haven't been great werewolf movies. It's not like everything's been done,
Yeah.
But
there's a lot of camp.
Every time they seem to throw money at it, it never works. It never, ever works. The Benicio del Toro one could have been great. It could have been great. But many things would have had to change, including a lot of the dialogue. The setup was okay. It could have worked. I thought the creature was fantastic. The CG,
the way it looked?
Yeah. The werewolf in it was wonderful, I thought, but the CG transformations were terrible.
Yeah, it just went from like a real man to a very fake switcheroo back to like a real makeup.
Yeah, because like when they would have it running on all fours through the forest, that was like, well, that's the CG werewolf. Oh, that's the makeup now. Okay, like you could totally tell. And that movie had a lot of faults, but this one had more. My wife's very forgiving, and she came to see it with us, and she didn't like it either. She was just very disappointed in a lot of things. She liked what it was trying to set up, and she liked The Invisible Man too. And she's critical because she doesn't like werewolf movies really, but she still sees them with me because she's awesome. She didn't like it. It was lame.
It was tough.
It was lame.
You want to know my favorite part?
Tell me. Oh, I know. Go ahead. Tell me.
When he's describing where this pristine location is that his father used to live, he's like, "There's this. The view is breathtaking. There's this valley right between 2 mountains." And Dave's like, you look to me, you're like, "A valley between 2 mountains? Oh, okay. Isn't that what valley fucking means?"
No, it's between the ocean and a hill. Stupid fucking.
I just felt you throw your arms up like, what the hell?
All the dialogue in that movie was pretty fucking bad. Nobody talks like that. I don't care. Whatever. I don't know if
I really tried hard to like that movie, but at the end of the day, it was like your only thing that would have saved it was just like the fear of that someone experiences with someone, let alone dad, turning into a monster.
Yeah.
And like no one seemed concerned about it at all until like he was actively trying to bite their heads off.
And he also like
just like, are you okay?
Yeah. He can't understand a word they're fucking saying. They just keep babbling at him. He just keeps laying there in his like werewolf
Dad's sick
trip haze that he's in. And he never even succumbs either. Like, he fights it valiantly the whole time, almost to the very end. Like, he basically lets her kill him, you know, as much as he can. Like, it's so, just why did we even do this? Like, no one changed. Like, you couldn't even.
He did.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you know what I mean. Like, as far as character development goes, like, it didn't even really feel like the mother and the daughter got much closer, because you expected them to be building up this gulf. That the way they introduced it was like, oh, this mother barely knows her daughter, and they stay-at-home dad, and it's this thing. But they were just so poorly drawn, and you got so little time to get to know them, you couldn't even sense that. So you couldn't really even tell if they had gotten closer or not, because they just spent just a whole time just being scared-ish and in the dark.
They weren't. They didn't even seem scared. They seemed like very, very concerned.
Yeah, the daughter seemed mildly upset and frightened sometimes, but she did not. She didn't even seem that upset when she shot his ass.
I raised my voice in the wrong tone, and like my kids are like petrified. If I started like sprouting hair from my face and growing teeth and gnawing my own arm and all that, they would be out the door screaming.
And they didn't
like,
set
no matter
the kid
what
up.
was out there.
Yeah, they didn't
get
set the
out
kid
of
up to
that
be
house.
like a tough ass or anything. She was a little girl with a hoodie with barriers on it. Like, she wasn't some tough kid. No, that was weird.
Right.
All right, the other scene I did like was the chewing of the leg. That was okay.
Oh, that was gnarly.
That was pretty gnarly. And I thought that was pretty gnarly. The arm biting part was unexpected.
It was gross.
Yeah, it was gross, and it really didn't make much. Again, it seemed more like a Wendigo move, man. Bro is a Wendigo.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there a hope? We immediately after seeing this news, we saw news that Eggers is making a werewolf movie now.
Yes.
So we have competing monster universes going on, I guess.
Yeah.
This is going to be called Werewolf.
Werewolf.
Werewolf. A weird Germanic spelling.
I don't know, man.
Well, you said I didn't really read about it. You said it's going to be set in the 13th century, right?
13th century. I don't know where exactly in Europe, but 13th century Europe.
Yeah, I mean, I assume Europe, unless it's.
Yeah. We wouldn't want it happening in North America with all historical inaccuracies. That would send Dave into fits.
Look, if you're defending Prey again, I don't want to get into this with you, bro. All right.
Yeah. I'm not defending Prey. I'm just saying, like,
right.
cool your jets. But yeah, like Robert Eggers is doing a werewolf movie, and I've been a big fan of his movies, and
right.
it just so happens that he had one come out right at the same time as Werewolf to give us a taste of what we might be, or as right at the same time as Wolfman to give us a taste of what we might be in for with this werewolf movie.
Yeah.
And did you watch Nosferatu?
I did. I have watched the Nosferatu recently at home, in the safety of my home. You watched it?
I watched it.
All right, you first.
I loved it.
Okay, I liked it too.
I thought it was great.
I don't know if I loved it, but I liked it.
I loved it. I think it did a like, again, you have a property and you're calling it something that we know, which heaps a bunch of expectation on it. And when you call something Nosferatu, I'm expecting a grotesque, like demon vampire that's trying to exert his will over people and suck blood, and man, that's exactly what we got.
Yeah. That's always been the difference between that and real Dracula stories, because this was a ripoff of the Dracula novel from 1922, silent film. In fact, it was almost completely destroyed.
Yeah, I read this.
Yeah, the the Stoker estate, I believe it was Bram Stoker's wife was still alive at the time. She sued the shit out of him and won. And they tried to destroy every copy of the movie. And some survived and got copied, and we still have it.
One copy survived.
Was it only one, really? Holy Christ.
Literally one copy survived, and that's the copy from which everything else flowed after they won that suit.
Yeah, it was kind of damaged, too.
Almost lost to time.
Yeah, and I remember I've seen it a bunch of times in a bunch of different transfers, and later on they digitally fixed it all up and made it look pretty damn good. But yeah, it almost got lost to time, which is really cool. And that was always the difference. That vampire, which was Count Orlok, and it was all, the setting was changed, the character names were changed, but the basic character structures were the same and the same story flow. But instead of being a suave, well, in the novel he wasn't like that, but he could at least somewhat appear human in the novel. Eventually,
right.
Once he got to London, Nosferatu ain't walking down no street. Count Orlok Count Orlok don't blend.
No, he's like a grotesque vision of hell. He's awful.
Yeah,
But I mean, I like that about it. They made it. Like
it's
vampire
different.
movies usually tend one way or the other. Like you have a vampire that's clearly a monster and meant to scare you, or you have a vampire that's like supposed to be like a sex symbol, just this ethereal, immortal, beautiful creature,
or
that
at least relatable,
Yeah.
in some way or another, sympathetic character.
Yeah. Like think Edward from Twilight if you watch those movies.
Or Interview is the classic example of that kind of. Everyone, you can kind of draw that back to Anne Rice for creating the romantic vampire in the modern age.
This swings so far back the other way. He is a nightmare.
Yeah, the Eggers one, this new one, it's actually kind of a combination of the silent film. Of course, there's a little bit of the original Dracula in there, and there's even some elements from the Coppola version from the '90s in the whole psychic, weird love connection thing between Orlok and Ellen.
Right.
That wasn't in the book. That shit's not in the book. It's not in any of the early movies. Coppola invented that for his storyline that he wove into the Dracula story. And they kind of made a version of it for this. So, it's a really, I mean, again, there have been so many adaptations of Dracula that it's pretty much a genre all by itself. I think.
You know what I loved about their approach, though?
What?
It's like it's been done so many times. So they made some choices. Like they made Count Orlok look fucking ridiculous. But also, in the Eggers one, just what he does to people, it's not something I've ever seen in a vampire movie. He like lays on top of them and drinks right from their chest, which is like, if you don't know, it just looks like an attempt to be different. But when they were making that movie, they were trying to come up with a look, and they said, well, where are these guys from? And they just went back to history and folklore, and like it's a pretty close approximation of what those guys dressed like and what they that style, like that haircut, that big honking mustache, and also the old tales of vampires going back into like the hundreds of years ago. People just thought a vampire would drink straight from your chest because that's where your heart is, and people didn't know that like wouldn't work because you have a breastbone there. It just wouldn't work. But that was the original story.
Well, and I guess they
that was
probably
passed down through the ages. So that's what they did. They just took it back to the folklore.
And think about what kind of blood-sucking creatures they encountered in nature, like leeches, things like that. They would then ticks. They attach anywhere, and they like the warmer parts of your body. So it kind of makes sense if you're trying to think like where these myths came from.
Yeah, they assumed that a vampire would drink blood straight from your heart.
There's a lot of weird attributes to old vampire myths and legends. There's a lot of A lot of stuff that didn't make it into the movies, and a lot of stuff from just different countries, different ideas. It's really interesting, some of it. You know why garlic is supposed to work?
Why?
Because when a garlic plant flowers, the center, well, I forget what's that called? I forget biology.
The pistol?
Pistol? The mortar in the pistol? No, yeah. The center of the flower looks like a cross.
Oh.
So, naturally, it's anti-vampire-y.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'll buy that.
All right, so I do have a couple nits to pick with Nosferatu.
Oh, yeah.
Eggers has a definite style. Like he likes to take certain things and push them really hard in a targeted way. Like I'm thinking like The Witch, that fucking endless scene with the boy just as he's dying, as he's just like screaming protestations to God and shit.
Oh, yeah.
That's a scene that's not a lot of fun. Like it's good, it's impactful the first time around, but like if you rewatch that movie, you're tuning out, you know. Like, but I guess he does it for the rhythm. But there were a few spots in this movie that were kind of like that. His voice got to me, man. I thought he talked a bit too much altogether.
Warlock?
Yeah. And I will give him credit. Like if they didn't do any digital weirdness to his voice, Skarsgård really did some work to get his voice to sound like that.
I don't think they did. I read something about him going to like a vocal coach.
Yeah, he trained with some opera singer or something.
Well, yeah, it was like a throat singer.
Yeah.
Like, you ever hear those like Mongolian throat singers? Mm-hmm. They use like overtones. And,
yep. And you could definitely hear that in what he did. You know, that was. I thought maybe he just talked a little too much. I think he could have been a little bit more mysterious, and it talked a little bit less. I don't know. I like the mustache. I thought the makeup was a little too heavy, in the face and head. It looked like he was wearing like a full mask, especially when like he's in the coffin. I know he's supposed to look like a monster, but I don't know. I feel like it might have been a little. I'm thinking about the makeup that Defoe had in
Shadow of the Vampire.
Yeah, in Shadow of the Vampire, where he essentially plays the same character, but that makeup followed the contours of his weird skull and face.
Yeah, and they didn't make any attempt to let you know that it was Bill Skarsgård under there.
They covered him completely, and that has its merits, but I mean, the nose just looked fake. It was so big, but it didn't look angular and weird like the older makeup did. It just looked like a really big nose. And with the mustache, it was just, I don't know, every couple, in some shots, it looked a little funny.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I know what they were going for. If you look at that old picture, there's like an old portrait of Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah.
And
I know what you mean.
They did a good job of approximating those features, but then also you consider like what Orlok is.
Yeah, they made him
movie.
Truly monstrous. I get it.
And
yeah,
he's a fucking corpse.
Yeah, with a corpse dick. You see his corpse dick.
Yeah.
It's
I
there.
heard a story that Bill Skarsgård, when they were done filming, like gifted his prosthetic wang to Nicholas Holt as like a joke. He gave it to him. But you look at what he is in this movie. He's like I think I read something. He's essentially a sorcerer. That's why he is the way he is. He did a bunch of like black magic spells to give himself those powers. And he's prolonged his life, but he's essentially a corpse that just keeps himself running on human blood.
Right, because that woman kind of gives a backstory and says something about the devil kept his body animated, so he couldn't escape the prison of his own body.
Oh, wait, I have a question. This is very important. When you watched it, how'd you watch it?
What do you mean? I watched it on the super secret server.
So did I. And for some reason, though the gypsy woman that was like talking to Nicholas Hoult, when she was speaking that other language, there were no subtitles. So I have no clue what she said.
I will admit I watched it with the subtitles on the whole time.
I had the subtitles on. For some reason, her bit wasn't subtitled.
Yeah, but you're talking about the scene where the young woman was interpreting for her?
Oh,
or you're
where she
talking
was
in the very
interpreting?
beginning in the village?
I'm talking in the beginning in the village.
Oh, yeah, she doesn't say much. Just basic, like, that place is evil, you won't come back kind of shit.
I got the gist of it. Okay.
I mean, it's the same beat. It did follow the same beats of a Dracula story, especially in the beginning.
Yeah, that's right where Dracula, the first Dracula movie, picks up. They're like, you can't go there.
The big difference that Nosferatu included, in the 1922 version did this too, they combined Jonathan Harker, the character of Jonathan Harker's boss, they combined him with the character of Renfield.
Right.
And it does this cool thing in that it makes the sending of Harker to Transylvania malicious and planned. Because it always seemed kind of dumb. It's like, really? You got to send this guy all the way the fuck there to sign some papers? You can't send the papers and then have them come back.
Right.
There's no way sending a human is easier than sending papers.
Right.
Because the human's got to come back too. It never made any sense, but this setup makes a little more sense.
I get it more too, because I don't know if it was this way in the book, but they also posit that Nicholas Holt's character had to sign, and the reason that he had to go there to sign was like he wasn't just transacting a transfer of property; he was like signing a contract for his wife's soul. And it was like he didn't know it.
Yeah, well, that's not at all involved. Like the wife thing, Dracula doesn't know anything other than the locket opens up usually in the normal Dracula setup, and he knows about. But he's not in love with her. It's just part of him being evil. You know, he's like, oh, cool. Well, I guess first thing I'm doing when I get to London is I'm going to eat this dude's family.
Oh, cool.
And then a lot of adaptations. It started with the Frank Langella one in the 70s. That was the first one to really add like the romance layer to it. Between him and Mina or him and Lucy, however they decide to name the women in the movies, because they change it all the fucking time. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so we also have a Dr. Seward character, which is Ralph Ineson. His name is Sievers, I think. Dr. Sievers in this.
Dr. Sievers, yeah.
He was pretty good. He's always good. He was great.
He's got that voice.
Yeah, yeah. And they gave him some great, like, quack doctor shit to say from the era.
She has too much blood in her.
Have her sleep with a corset. It's good for the humors. So he was great. I will say, man, like going into it, I was apprehensive because I'm not the biggest fan of Nicholas Hoult or that Aaron Taylor Johnson dude.
I think he was great in that role.
I was just going to say, Johnson, he's Friedrich, right? He's supposed to be such a dick.
He's a dick.
And it worked perfectly. And as soon as I realized, like, oh, he's playing the dick, okay, this could work. This could work. And Nicholas Hoult was good, too.
He was great.
Sometimes he annoys me, sometimes. Like, too much of him annoys me. But he was perfect for this.
It's funny that he has played the Jonathan Harker character and Renfield in two different Dracula movies, vampire movies.
Right, because he was Renfield in Renfield. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, and this is Harker. Yeah, well, Willem Dafoe played a version of Orlok, and now he was the Van Helsing allegory in this.
That's funny. That's what you call range.
Yeah, man, that's some Shakespearean shit. And
Nicholas Hoult.
Hey, I'll tell you, man, I thought it was gimmicky too. I'm like, man, Johnny Depp's daughter, really? Like, she can act? Are we sure? She was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
She was
great.
And I'll tell you, man, there's a couple scenes, like close-ups on her face where I'm like, oh, I can see her dad in there. Like, she has his cheekbone angles because he was always a very feminine-looking dude when he was young.
Yeah.
She has those cheekbones, and the darkness around the eyes is very much him. But I was really surprised. She stood on her own, man. She gave a
She was great.
she gave a hell of a performance, and she had to
That
carry
could not
a
have
lot.
been an easy role.
No, man, that last scene was fucking gnarly.
Yeah.
That was a hell of an ending, I gotta say. That and the scene with the two kids in the nursery.
Oh, God. I wasn't ready for that.
I'll give it credit, man. I didn't know that this could be done in this day and age, but it actually did manage to make vampires a little scary again. That was
Yeah, man.
That was a straight up horror movie. There was no lady in white either. Like he was the fucking monster, dude. He wasn't making other vampires like. Yeah, and they kept the ending. They kept the ending from the silent movie, but made it hardcore. The fact that
really
he was
did.
like, yeah, and that idea that he's just like a naked corpse who wears like a cloak, you know, somehow made it even creepier.
Yeah, he's grotesque.
Yeah, yeah, and he's really evil. Like he's really evil. Like his motivations, everything he says, like there's no, like he doesn't even like try to. I keep forgetting his name in the movie, Thomas, right? He doesn't even, how do I forget it? It's your fucking name. He doesn't even try to like lull him into some false sense of security when he first shows up at the castle. Like you usually see in Dracula movies, like at least usually he keeps him calm through the food part, you know, and then Harker always cuts himself. And that's when like the facade begins to slip. Orlok is fucking creepy from the moment.
Yeah.
Like he's scary as shit. His nails, like there's no pretending he's not a monster. Like as soon as Thomas gets there, he's like, "Oh fuck, I fucked up." Like, you can see it on his face too. He's just like, "Oh fuck."
Oh, he realizes it was at this point. He knew. He fucked up.
And he's just terrified, as he should be from then on out. And also no brides. There's no brides, so there's not even like the weird Keanu Reeves vampire orgy. You know, as a bonus. Nothing. There's just rats. There's just fucking rats everywhere.
And those scenes were scary too because like he's going crazy. Like when he keeps like waking up and they have those like shock, like almost like jump scare moments where he kind of jolts back to consciousness after having clearly been hypnotized or glamored or whatever, and he can't get out.
Yeah, okay, this is some weird Dracula lore, but in the many years since that book was published, right, they found different versions of it.
I've heard this.
I've read them. Like, they survived for different reasons. One of them was they think that an earlier manuscript of what was ultimately published was sent to Iceland to be translated into Icelandic, and then they made a bunch of changes to the English version. But the old version ended up staying in Iceland and getting reprinted over and over and over again. And then they retranslated it back to English and found like it's almost a completely different book. And the big difference was that most of it was about Harker's ordeal in the castle.
Right.
And his journey into madness and into learning.
I want to read that.
Is really interesting, man. It fleshes it out a lot. And then there's also another version that survived in a similar way in Europe. I forget exactly where, but you can find them on Kindle. I know they're both on there. And that's the neat thing was that the focus shifted in the later draft. Like it was more of this. It was more of a monster horror story about Castle Dracula. And the London part was like a coda almost. And there was a BBC version of Dracula that was a mini series that they did a few years ago, and it was a little weird, but it followed. It must have been using those versions for the story because it did that. It fleshed out Harker's ordeal in the castle by quite a lot, and the character of Dracula was much more like he was in that version. In the Icelandic version, Dracula gets younger and younger every time he feeds on Harker.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
And he also absorbs his knowledge of the modern world. And they really emphasize that in the show. Like literally Dracula in the show, he feeds on somebody and he can speak the language that they speak. And from then on, forever. And he knows
cool.
everything they ever knew. It's a really neat thing to add to the character, and it was hinted at by Stoker when he wrote this. So there's so much to pull from now if you're into it. If you're a filmmaker, I think, who's really into the genre, the subgenre of Dracula, I think he really was, and I think that's why he pulled this off. He picked and chose all the really good bits and then decided he kind of made his own monster. He had Orlok to work with, but I think his Orlok is so different that it has to stand on its own. The F.W. Murnau version from the 70s with Klaus Kinski, he speaks in that, of course, because it was the first talkie version. But, man, I got to tell you, I've tried to watch that one, and I just fucking hate it.
Oh, really?
I don't know, man. The pacing's weird. It's fucking, I don't know. It was just like, it felt like another Dracula story. And I don't know. It wasn't very atmospheric to me. It was very technicolor-y. And it was in color, too. This one was so desaturated sometimes, it almost looked like it was in black and white.
Black and white.
Yeah.
The scenes that take place at night.
Yeah.
It's just...
I will say, though, it made the blood stand out more. This movie was great. I mean, it was beautiful to look at the whole time. Like, visually, this movie was fantastic. Stunning. The costumes. They made Willem Dafoe look so fucking cool through the whole thing.
Oh, Willem Dafoe
He was
awesome.
wonderful. Wild man. Stole, like, most of the scenes he was in.
When Severs sees him after so long, he's like, Dr. Severs, my old friend, come, embrace me.
Yeah. It was a great choice to make this Van Helsing version just fucking off the wall nuts. He's always kind of there. Like the Anthony Hopkins version, he was there. He was a little nutty in that, but not this. This was great. That was one of the best parts of it. And the guy who played Thomas's boss, Knock or whatever it was, he did a great job. And they really made him fucking creepy
terrifying.
As the Renfield-ish character. No, they did a lot of great things. A lot of great things, man. Like I said, very nitpicky things I had about it. But, phew, night and day. And, like, the way it looked compared to Wolfman, both were very dark movies, but Wolfman to me looked like shit most of the time. It was too dark, I thought, and then it wasn't even good dark. Like, it wasn't black dark. It was, like, these blue filters, and there's light coming in from outside through the windows, and you're like, where the fuck is this light coming? Is that supposed to be moonlight?
I had that thought. I was like, where's the light coming from?
Yeah, like, I get it. You're in a dark cabin, right, but what is the light source? Because this is lit by something bluishly. And it just takes me out of it. It just took me the fuck out of it. And also, I was like squinting to try to see, like, what the fuck is going on? And it's not just me, man. I watch a ton of dark movies. There's movies that they just make too dark. You remember, what was it? AVP 2. AVP Requiem?
Yeah.
And a lot of things wrong with that movie, but that was one of the first thing people say about it. It was so fucking dark. I couldn't see. I don't get the point. Like, if you're going to have the fucking monster on screen, well, also, Wolfman is, I think, the only werewolf movie I've ever seen that has one off-screen kill, and that's it. Nobody else dies in that fucking movie. Nobody.
Wait. You're right.
Nobody.
Yeah,
There's
like
no victims.
One guy.
One guy, one werewolf, two werewolves. Two werewolves die. The mother and the daughter escape unscathed. They're not even scratched, because I guess if they were, they'd be fucking werewolf things too. It's
wolf women.
Wolf wears. Swearwolves.
Werewolves, not swearwolves.
That transformation scene in the movie, What We Do in the Shadows, was better and scarier.
It was pretty good.
I always thought it was kind of creepy. It kind of freaked me out a little bit. The backlighting, it was obvious they were trying to hide bad costumes, but you saw so little and just enough. And they kind of looked like the werewolves from Dog Soldiers.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah, and the howling. Yeah. I don't know, man. I guess I obviously will give Eggers a shake for his werewolf movie. I don't know. The Northman I didn't like very much. Did you like that?
Oh, I like the Northman.
I liked it.
I like it.
Saying I didn't like it much, that's a bit strong. I've seen it 3 times, so I don't know. I felt the pacing was weird to me, and
the pacing's very weird.
Yeah, I think it just felt off to me. Something I like parts of it. I dug the story. It was brutal and harsh, and it's really tough to watch that raid on the village.
Yeah, that's awful.
Yeah, it's tough to be sympathetic.
It plays like Greek tragedy.
Yeah, it is a very old-fashioned story, and he's good at that. He's good at tapping into the spirit of the time in which something is set.
The story itself is like so traditional. It is lifted straight from an old
hero's
tome.
journey shit, hardcore. Yeah.
Like the Norns of Fate and trying to assure your place in Valhalla, and the way that story's told.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the
even
infiltration and and it's the father's brother, and it's classic
it plays like
stuff.
a stage play.
Yeah, and it's got this detached morality too of a story from that era. There's a mythic quality to it somehow.
Right. Well, when an actual Valkyrie shows up at the end.
Yeah. Well, when he goes into that, the cave to challenge, when he has to fight to get the sword.
To get the Nightblade.
Yeah, that was baller.
That was awesome.
That was some Beowulfian shit. That was awesome.
And I liked how they did it too, because he defeats it and then he looks down and the thing is still sitting down. It was like almost he fought it in his mind.
Yeah, that's what made it make sense. That's why it was okay. It wasn't supernatural per se. It's just the pacing is weird to me, and it's a very long movie. It's hard to rewatch a lot, but that's okay. I've watched The Witch way too many times.
Did you see The Lighthouse?
Yeah. Again, not an easy movie to watch, but pretty awesome. Pretty incredible. The performances from both of them were great. Pattinson was great. When he kills that fucking bird, that was a great... Yeah. When he kills the seabird, that was a great... And the accents, the clothes, he doesn't just set a movie in a random time period. It really feels like he does a lot to paint a picture when he makes a movie, and I appreciate that. It sucks you in. It's definitely immersive. It held my attention.
It's a complete setting.
Yeah, Nosferatu it didn't drag. There was no it's a pretty long movie, and there are slow parts, but it does not drag. And I thought that it was paced really well compared to some of his other stuff. The Witch is paced really well. Except there's that one draggy part where the kid dies too slow. All right.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah. I don't know.
He's working his way through all these different eras of folklore.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thread, the Witch of the Woods, all that, those old sea shanty stories.
Yep.
There be mermaids here.
Norse mythology.
Nosferatu, Norse mythology, and now we're getting a werewolf movie.
Well, I
love it, though.
4 things going on, too, apparently. But
is he really making Labyrinth?
That's what I heard. That's
real?
Yep. All right, so a little speculation then. So 14th century werewolves, this has not exactly not been done before, but it hasn't been done very well. What am I thinking about here? There's that Red Riding Hood movie, which is actually a werewolf movie, believe it or not.
I heard that was terrible.
Yeah, the one with, what's her name? I like her.
Siegfried?
Yeah, the blonde with the giant eyes. Amanda Siegfried, yeah. It's not a great movie. It has moments. It was a weird endeavor, but it's a werewolf set in like the Middle Ages, right? They did what was the Ginger Snaps Back, the third one.
Oh yeah.
That's set in a fort in the New World, but it's, I believe it's in the 1600s, so it's kind of the same idea. Taking the werewolf back before the electric light is a good idea, I think. It's a monster that's way scarier when night is really night. I mean, it's scary when it's like you shouldn't venture into the woods, but when you're surrounded by inky blackness and just the moonlight, just atmospherically, it's going to be baller.
Remember that scene towards the end of The Northman when he finally goes to like raid their camp and it's pitch fucking dark.
Yeah,
all they have are the torches, and they know this guy's out there, and he calls himself the Wolf. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I think like that right there is like a preview of what you might be able to expect. Like you know this terrifying killer is out there, and you can't see it,
and see
all you have is like 6 feet of torchlight.
And that's how you light a scene like that and make it compelling. And he's so good with whoever he uses for the sound editing is always so on top of shit and that's so big for a werewolf movie. How it sounds and just the atmosphere. I'm looking forward to it. I really am. I'm going to get my hopes up again, I guess. Just to be dashed once more.
When will we learn?
I don't know, man. I heard that other werewolf movie sucked balls.
Which one?
The Frank Grillo movie. I think it was just called Werewolves, to be honest.
Oh, no.
Remember we saw the trailer? It was like an action movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Not
I was
good.
waiting for people to be like, it's fun, crazy, and it wasn't, apparently. It just sucked. I'm waiting for it to come on something free because I'm not paying for it.
Damn.
Almost saw that in the theater. All right, do you wish do you wish you saw Nosferatu in the theater? That's the question.
Kinda, yeah. If I had to choose, I wish I could have gone like see Nosferatu and like waited for Wolfman to be available at home.
Word. Me too. I had
that
tickets.
Movie's like Nosferatu is like a visual feast. There's so much to look at.
Yeah, we had tickets, man. We had tickets, but I was sick. I got sick. I couldn't go.
Ah, that sucks.
Yeah. Blues. Oh well. Looks pretty good on my giant fucking TV.
Yeah.
All right. Well, 0.1 for vampires. Another negative point for werewolves. It's a shame. But we shall see. Redemption in the form of Eggers.
Come on, Robert. Pitch another gem.
Save us while Willem Dafoe is still alive. Give him another role.
Oh my God! Yeah, give me as many unhinged Willem Dafoe rants as you can.
You make him a vampire. Make him a werewolf hunter. You make him the same character. I don't know.
Always fucking unhinged, and he was in The Northman. He was like one of the priests.
Yeah, he was the one farting and shit in that little cave hut with Ethan Hawke.
Right.
It was a wild
Ethan Hawke.
scene.
That scene is nuts.
Ethan Hawke, the guy whose voice has gotten to be like this. They should have got him to play fucking Batman.
You are my yeah.
But that shit's natural. That's from smoking 2.5 packs of Parliaments a day. That guy's voice changed so much over his career. It's fucking wild. But his stuff that he's been doing lately, I love it. I'm an Ethan Hawke fan, I gotta say.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, man. He does weird projects. Like, some of his stuff is a little out there, but...
Did you see The Black Phone?
Yeah. I liked it enough. It was Stephen Kingian. I don't know.
It pissed me off.
Really?
A little bit.
All right. You gonna go any further on that, or?
No, not tonight.
Fantastic. Outstanding. Circling back to something I was supposed to not forget, and I forgot. That movie Cursed with Christina Ricci that I mentioned.
Yeah.
It came out in 2005. It's worth mentioning because it was a Universal movie, right? And it was. So you remember Scream was supposed to be a meta take on slasher movies, right?
Yeah, he was very
Wes
self-aware.
Craven. Yeah, Wes Craven. Yeah. This was supposed to be his meta take on classic monster movies for teenagers, for the same age demographic.
This was Wes Craven that made this?
Yeah, Wes Craven made this. It was called Cursed, and that was what it was supposed to be, and it was supposed to primarily be a werewolf movie. They filmed the whole movie, practically. 3/4 of the movie was in the can. And something happened. I don't know if test audiences didn't like what they filmed or if the studio didn't like it. But whatever happened, they fired most of the cast, rewrote the whole movie, and then reshot the whole movie.
The whole thing?
Like Skeet Ulrich was in this. He was one of the leads in this movie, and he is no longer in the movie. Like everything they did with him is gone. Like there's a whole they retained like I think 2 scenes, and Jesse Eisenberg is in this. He's really young, and you can tell because the original footage he had longer hair, significantly longer hair, and there's one scene that they kept with him, and he's got a completely different color and length of hair. It's like just ridiculously different, and he's also obviously
very
younger.
weird.
And it's this weird, just kind of unknown werewolf movie that's came out really goofy and just really just like it's a weird movie tonally, you know? Like the werewolf can talk when it's a werewolf and it's a woman. So it's Judy Greer. And she can talk while she's a werewolf and say like quips and one-liners, and it's awful. and like
So it's a lady werewolf that like might bite your neck out and then say, "Oh, that's gotta hurt," or something like that.
Yeah, you got it in one, yeah. And Craig Kilborn has a cameo when he was the host of the Daily Show. And because it takes place in Hollywood in some capacity. Scott Baio is in it for a little while.
Scott Baio?
Scott Baio, yeah. Milo Ventimiglia, when he was young, he's in it. He plays a guy who bullies Jesse Eisenberg, and then it turns out that he's actually gay and has a thing for Jesse Eisenberg, and that's why he bullies him.
Oh,
He
as
has a
one
lot
does.
there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of growth there. They did Shannon Elizabeth is in it. And she does the Janet Leigh thing from Psycho, where you don't think she's going to die, and then they kill her close to the beginning. And that's the scene I was talking about. There's a car crash, and then the werewolf grabs her in the woods. And I don't know, man. Derek Mears is in it. He's the werewolf. Like he's the dude.
Derek Mears?
Yeah, he played Jason.
Yeah.
He's the guy in the werewolf suit, so that's pretty cool.
So Judy Greer turns into Harry Jason.
Yeah, I guess so. It's just this weird thing. It was like a movie that just, I don't know. There's weird Hollywood stories like that. It was a movie that almost was and then got retracted and reworked, and no one really saw it.
Is it any good?
It's funny. Yeah, if you're going into it as like it's like a light horror comedy sort of thing, it's all right. It's fun. But I mean, like there's things like the golden retriever gets infected and becomes a golden retriever.
A were-dog?
A were-dog. And then, like I said, Scott Baio's in it. But also Christina Ricci's boyfriend is the dude from the Dawson Creek. What's his name?
Josh Jackson?
Yeah, not the blonde one, the other one.
James Vanderbeek?
He's the blonde one, right?
So Josh Jackson.
Yeah, Josh Jackson. He plays Christina Ricci's boyfriend, who is opening the hottest new club in town, and it just happens to be like monster themed. Like they have
This
Larry.
is the hottest club in town.
Yeah.
It's got everything.
It's got everything.
Werewolves, sirens,
Swearwolves.
swearwolves.
MTV's
called
Dan Cortez.
Spicy.
And it has Larry Talbot's cane in a case made of lucite.
It answers
really
the
does.
question, me?
That's that thing when that's the thing when you turn Judy Greer into a werewolf and she makes all kind of weird sexual innuendos. It's called a swearwolf.
What a weird bit.
But there really is. They have Larry Talbot's cane, the original one from the original Wolfman, is in.
Oh, word?
Yeah, it's one of the things that's on display in this club that he's building. I think there's a life-size Gillman. Like, there's a bunch of
Building
shit.
a monster club.
Yeah, it's like something your sisters would have opened if they opened a nightclub.
This sounds like an adult sequel to Monster Squad.
It's not that cool. It's
Oh,
not that cool
damn.
at all. No. And the werewolf is not interesting looking at all. It's just a big, dumb werewolf with an animatronic head. There's no really good transformation scene or anything. It's just like, yeah, it's like a weird... It's nothing. It's just between genres, between tones. It's interesting for that fact. And it's got a good cast. Like, it's all good actors. It's just a weird movie that feels like it was spliced together from other shit. Check it out.
That sounds very bizarre.
Yeah, let me see if it's on Paramount Plus. That's where it lives.
Oh, yeah, I can watch that.
Cursed. 2005.
Add that to my ever-growing list of movies that I have to try to find time to watch.